So it looks like you're saying that that society doesn't exist anymore. So
Well,
we shouldn't trust the people anymore.
right. No, I think that I think that in pointing out those assumptions, I'm not saying, oh, we're no longer yeoman farmers, forget it, right? Let's have a monarchy, right? I am not saying that. What I'm saying is that we need to think through what's behind the claim that there should be no power that ultimately isn't directly in the hands of the people, right? You could argue, right, that we're better suited than we were in Jefferson's time to trust the people. First of all, we have much more universal involvement, right? We're not excluding women. We're not excluding people from participation based on the color of their skin. We have a broadly educated populace, formal education, right? Like the public education was largely unknown in Jefferson's time. Now it's ubiquitous and compulsory. Everybody have to go, right? And so we have levels of formal education that were absent then, and we have a much more diverse, people who would be putting putting power in their hands ultimately. So just to say things have changed doesn't mean that we couldn't preserve Jefferson's insight. I think what it does require us to do, though, is to think through what we're saying, right? If we live in a society, and it's happened before in the history of the United States, and it's happening today, where we have great inequality of income and wealth, then we might ask, right, is a highly unequal society one that we want to put in the driver's seat? Because if we put power in the hands of the people, who's really going to be exercising that power, right? If it's all yeoman farmers making pretty much the same amount of money and everybody's kind of in the same position, you might believe that there's equal participation. You might argue, if we have a highly inegalitarian society, that a disproportionate amount of power is going to be in the hands of an elite. And that we'll be kidding ourselves when we say, oh, we're keeping the government constrained because we're putting every power ultimately to the vote of the people, right? Yeah, it's put to a vote, but does that mean everybody's vote is counting the same? Right? So these are arguments we have to have. We have to think about the assumptions that come along with our claim to constrain and chasten political power through popular accountability and control. We all claim that. In the United States, no one's saying you shouldn't do that. But it's not always going to spit out the same kind of result depending on who these people are, right? What they do for a living. What are the conditions of life like? These are all very important. And lately, say, the criticism of our electoral process in the 2016 presidential election, a concern that the way in which people are linked on social media led to the spread of misinformation, right? And that may have led people to make votes that really weren't in their self-interest. This is a criticism, right? So this is the people now, many of them, we're all linked. We're all sharing. We're all liking, right? And so that kind of form of communication has consequences for the kinds of judgments we make, good and bad, right? My suggestion, my hope, is that we take into account those sorts of conditions as we think through the design of democratic government, and importantly, as we advocate reforms to existing forms of government. Let's say, for example, we wanted to elect judges in Italy, right? If we want to elect judges in Italy, well, let's figure out what that means. Let's figure out not only how we would design those elections, but how we think of the electorate. Are they capable of making good judgments here? And that doesn't mean that they all have to be virtuous in a Jeffersonian way, but we do have to have some kind of trust that the good decisions will be made when we put important matters in the hands of the public.